Okay, there we go. Problem solved. All right, so when you're scaling something, you are not actually, in model space, physically changing the size of that object, right? You're just zooming in or out and changing how you view it, essentially. So this object is always going to be 3 inches tall, right? This object's always going to be, I don't know, however tall it is. Morning, Jameson.
Are you recording?
I am recording. I just started. Why do you need something?
If anyone sees an A360 error, it should pop up like in the taskbar. Just let me know.
AutoCAD 360. Anybody.
I had something pop up on my laptop actually.
Oh. Well, now you know who to talk to about it, right?
Free technologist walked away.
I know, there you go. Okay, so this object, is like 20 feet tall, right? Morning. So when we view them and they're scaled, we're just essentially viewing a zoomed view of them, okay? And I want you to realize that not only are you viewing a zoomed version of the object that we are trying to print, you're also viewing a zoomed view of the text, right? And so when I look at this text, for example, right, if I look at it and I do a list, li, enter, it tells me that that text is 1/8 of an inch tall. Great. And if I look at this text, li, enter, this text is 6 inches tall. Okay. And if I look at this text over here, because this property is likely several hundred feet long, right? I look at that text and it is 5 feet tall. All right. So we have texts that are all different heights. Now, if I come over here to paper space, and I'm going to set my paper space up to print, one really great thing about paper space is that I can put all of those different objects on the same piece of paper, and let's see, there we go. They can all be different scales. So we'll put one object here. There we go. MV. I'm going to do a second object here. Okay, MV, and I'm going to create a third object there. Okay, so the first object I want to create and scale here is this little guy, and he is scale factor 1 to 1. Okay, so we're going to do a 1 to 1 scale factor. Oop, yeah, that looks good. Okay, and then this little guy, this little tree, right, that's a scale factor of 1/4 of an inch. Actually, sorry, I'm going to change that one. 1 inch is equal to a foot. That's what we want right there. Okay. This little tree, 1/2 inch, was it 1/2 inch? Hopefully I'm remembering right. There it is. Looks pretty good. Click, click. And this guy is 240. 1 inch is equal to 20 feet. Maybe we have that, maybe we don't. We do not. Let me create one. Hold on, you guys don't need to do this, I just want to show you something. 1 inch.
We choose extents in the plot area?
Yes. Alright, so I've got these 3 objects. 1 inch is equal to, oh, where is it? There we go. There we go. Alright, so we have these 3 objects. They're all scaled at different scales. They're all on the same piece of model space paper, right? And even though this text is only 1/8 of an inch tall, which is microscopic, right? And this text was, how big was that? Let's list it. 6 inches, right? And this text over here was 5 feet, right? They're not identical in size, but because they're all scaled correctly on this piece of paper, the idea is that this text will look pretty similar. And they do, right? So 5 feet tall text, 6 inch tall text, and 1/8 of an inch tall text all look relatively similar on this piece of paper when they're scaled correctly. Okay. Now, the reason that all those pieces of text have to be different in model space is because this object right here, when I zoomed in to scale it, it's a 1-to-1 scale, meaning it didn't zoom in at all, really, right? So it's representing that object at the exact size it is. This one is a 1/4 of an inch, so it has a 48 scale zoom factor. So it's zooming 48 times to get it to look small enough on this page to be, or sorry, 1/2 inch. Was it 1/2 inch? 1/2 inch. So this one is zooming in 24 times to look scaled at a 1/2 inch, right? And this one is so big that it's scaling it at 240 times to look the right size, right? So when I take my text, if I took an 1/8 of an inch text and I zoomed it, 240 times, right? It's going to be pretty tiny, right? We have to scale our text up, essentially in model space, so that when it scales down to be represented, to scale, that it looks right. Okay, that somewhat makes sense what I'm saying. Okay, so what I just described is kind of the old way of doing text. Okay, the idea that in model space, when you do create text in model space, you can also create text in paper space. The idea that when you create it, you have to make it larger than it needs to be so that it's viewed smaller in paper space through a viewport. All right. Now, it doesn't sound really that cumbersome, but it really is. Here's where Revit definitely has an edge, right? So when you're using Revit, you put a piece of text, you say it's an 1/8 inch, and Revit compensates for whatever scale you choose to print your drawings at, right? So you say, hey, I wanted an 1/8 inch, and every piece of text in that 1/8 inch drawing scales to the right size, regardless of how you've created it, right? Which is magic compared to what AutoCAD has going on at times, right? So this is kind of the old way of creating text, okay? And what we're going to do instead of that, because I do feel like it's pretty cumbersome, and I do feel like Revit has solved it, and I do feel like AutoCAD has kind of a new way that has semi-solved it, we're going to go that direction, okay? And the way that we are going to go is called annotative text, all right? And what annotative text does, let me come into my model space here. Annotative text allows me to set a height to my text. And the height is set to whatever I want to view the text at when it's printed. So if I'm over here in paper space and I measure this text, let's see, this text is a 1/4 of an inch tall, right? That means that when I print, I want my text to look a 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and this text, this is a little smaller, but I would assume that this text is a 1/4 of an inch as well. That was an 1/8 inch over there, right? So 1/4 of an inch, right? So what I'm going to do with my annotative text is within the text style that we're going to create, I am going to set the height of the text how I want to view it, and I'm going to use an annotative feature to achieve that text height. All right, so let's go through that process. It's going to be, let me run through it, right, and then I'll go back and answer questions as we have them. But again, essentially, we're getting rid of the idea that we have to make text bigger, to scale it down in paper space, okay? All right, so I'm going to put that idea aside for just a second, and I'm going to talk about something else with regard to text, okay? And that is a text style. All right, if you come here to the Annotate tab, it's right here, okay. The Annotate tab is where we have a lot of our annotation items. So we have text, we have dimensions, we have leaders, we have tables, right? A lot of things that annotate or describe items in your drawings, okay. Text is the first tool palette. You'll notice we have a little drop down here, right? And then we have a little flyout here. When I click on this little flyout, I get the text style manager, okay? The text style manager is where we're going to create all of our text styles, all right? A text style is a predefined text style that has a font and a size and orientation or oblique angle associated with a piece of text, okay? The reason behind having a text style is so that essentially all of your drawings look the same, right? You have kind of a continuous style running through your drawings. Most firms that you work at, they will establish kind of what font you use, what size of text you use, if there's an oblique angle, you know, associated with it, if it's upside down, backwards, whatever, right? They kind of establish that, and it sort of brands them as a company, right? AJC loved City Blueprint, right? So we always had City Blueprint. I worked at a little firm out in Draper, and they loved Arial. Method Studio likes, I think it's Bank Gothic that they like. Essentially, people just, you know, they kind of, they design their firm logos and their letterhead, and they use a specific font, and right, that kind of carries through their drawings. Anyway. And so the idea behind a text style is to be able to associate that style in AutoCAD so that you can use it, right? Makes sense. All right, so let me just cancel out of this real quick. You'll notice, so we have this flyout, which is where the text style is generated. We have a little button right here that says multi-line text and single-line text, okay? We have this little drop down up here that has a little check mark, or check the spelling actually. It has a check mark and ABC next to it. This is our text style drop down, okay? Our text style drop down, this is what's called a gallery feature. And a gallery feature, semi-new in AutoCAD, but it allows you to preview the style that you're about to choose, right? So if I look in my text styles, I have Arial 0 and Standard in there, right? And if I come up here to my text styles, I have Arial 0 and Standard in there. And it gives me a little preview of what these look like, okay? I also have a text height right here that I can associate, but we're not going to worry about that just yet. Okay, and as I kind of showed before, AutoCAD does have a spell check feature, right? And it is a good thing. Surprisingly, you find nobody ever uses it. Really? Nobody ever uses it. Yeah, and there are so many spelling errors in architectural drawings if you pay attention. Anyway. Okay, so let's look at text. So what we want to do here is I want to show you the different types of text, how to create a text style, and then we're going to talk about how to navigate the annotative portion of the text, okay? And this annotative idea, annotative meaning I can set a specific height and it sort of adjusts to different scales, right, without having to manipulate the text. That's going to follow us through the semester. So anything having to do with like dimensions or multi-liters or text, you'll have an annotative feature associated with it from now on, okay? All right, so let's first look at the type of texts that we have available to us, right? We have multi-line and we have single line, right? And multi-line text, when I click on multi-line text, and I believe the shortcut command is M text, that creates text in a paragraph format, right? So I can click, move in the direction I want to go, click again, and I get a paragraph kind of feature going on, okay? And I can start typing things, right? 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter, 4, enter, right? And I can select text in a paragraph format. And up here you'll notice at the top we have a text editor that appears when I'm in multi-line text. This functions just like any word processor, right? Like Word, Microsoft Word. We have a drop down where even if I have a style associated with my text, I can still change this, right? We'll go to the good old City Blueprint. Okay, so I can change my text size, I can change the layer, I can change if it's bold, italic, bullets and numbering and justifications and symbols, right? I have a bunch of symbols I can add in there. Do we want columns, right? You guys all know how this works, right? You've all used Word and PowerPoint and text editors, so. But essentially this multi-line text, it allows you to create text in a paragraph format. So I can type something, hit enter, type something, hit enter, and just continue to wrap a paragraph, okay? I can also come up here and grab this, this top tab and drag it out and make the paragraph larger, right? Make it bigger here. When I'm done typing my text in here, I can hit close text editor and there's my text, all right? If I need to edit it again, I can double click on it very fast and that text editor pops back up, right? I can select the text in there and I can change the font, change the size. Here's the size, Okay, 10 feet. I could type in a size 5 foot. Oop, I just deleted. No, I do not want to save that. Oop. Oop, what am I doing? Right, I can change the size. You see how when I mouse over a different size, it goes crazy. If I choose 1/4 of an inch and then I hit close text, do you see that it appears as if it's gone? It's not gone. It's just tiny, right? Just tiny. And that's kind of an important thing to realize. So when you're creating text, I think the #1 error that I see happening with new students is that they create the text, right? They know kind of what size it needs to be, but then they've got a big drawing next to it, right? And they say, oh, it disappeared. I don't know where it went. My name is gone. The da-da-da's gone. And I go in there and they've got about 18 different versions of a tiny little string of text here, right? I'm going to double click on that, grab those, use my drop down here, right? Choose 10 feet, okay? Close text editor. There we go. Okay. So I've got my, my multi-line text, right? And in your assignment here, right, you probably more likely this text justification, you're going to have some text that you have to create, and it will be in paragraph format. So this first paragraph right here, I'm going to multi-line text, click, click, right? Excuse me, and start typing. Okay. Okay. So I've got my multi-line text. I also have single line text. Okay. If I click on single line text, I'm going to have some options down at the command line that I have to input. Okay. If I choose to. I can also click in model space. Click. And it's going to say, what height would you like your text to be? Well, 10 feet. Enter. Specify a rotation angle. 0 is going to be kind of completely horizontal text, right? If I typed 45, it would rotate at 45 degrees. But I could type, you know, hit 0, enter, and then I could start typing. 1, 2, I can hit enter and go in paragraph format, but if I hit enter twice, it ends the command, okay? I'm going to click on single line again, click, enter, enter, 1, 2, 3. I could also click in another spot, click, and it jumps the single line text. So if I am trying to, for example, create text, you know, on this site plan, I can click here and type 1, click, 2, click, 3, enter, enter, right, and it goes away. Okay. These single line text and multi-line text are both tied to to text styles, right? So right now the text style that I'm using to generate this text is called Arial 0. Okay. If I wanted to change the style, I would drop down, choose standard. Okay. Click on single line text. Click 1, 2, 3, enter, enter. And there's my single line text. That single line text has a 9-inch height associated with it. Okay. What's nice about this text is that it's all separate pieces, right? So I can grab those, I can move them around. What's not good about it is that it's all separate pieces, so it doesn't, you know, stay together very well. So if you want to create text that is more paragraph-like, that is going to remain in one whole piece, right? You're going to want to create multi-line text. And if you don't really care and you're just kind of trying to title some things, then probably single line text, okay? Now single line text, I'm going to click on single line text again, okay? You'll notice that when I click on it, and I didn't go over this at first, but I have a justify and I have a style option, right? Style, I don't usually go into this actual style option to choose the style of my text because the drop down is so easy. But a lot of times I will go into the justify option. Click on justify. We have left, center, right, align, middle, fit, top left, top center, top right, middle left, middle center, middle right, bottom left, bottom center, bottom right. Okay. So the only one here that probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense is align. And what align does in terms of your assignment, there is a piece of text that you're going to have to put right here. And the idea is to make it fit from this corner to that corner, that end to that end, right? So what align does is it will take a piece of text and it will size it according to length and height to a specific distance, right? So if you want to fit your name to a line and have it be that length, align, A-L-I-G-N, right, would be the alignment that you want to use. AutoCAD's weird because you say use a line and you're like, align like A-L-I-G-N align, or align like A-L-I-N-E, or alignment. There's a lot of similar terms, right? Right. So any questions? Well, let me go over single line text justification. I click on single line, right? I come down to justify. I can click on it, or I could also type J, enter, and I could type top left, TL, enter. The top left would be maybe here. Click, specify the rotation, 0, enter, and I could type enter, whatever I want to see. Okay, so pretty simple. Text can be matched, right? I can use match properties to match my text. MA, enter. Click. Look at that. Click, right? It doesn't turn single line into multi-line, but it will match styles, right? So it'll match size, height, and style.
Which one was that? I'm sorry, do that again.
MA, enter.
Oh.
Click. Click. You can grab all these 2, 3. See, it doesn't really change the how it's displayed, the orientation and alignment, but there we go. Okay. Not bad, right? Okay, so we know about text. Let's talk about creating text styles. Okay. So we want to, in an effort to help us keep our drawings consistent, looking consistent, and following a style, we want to create text styles. Okay. It's also a time saver, so that when you have to add titles and text to your drawings, you don't have to go in and change the font and change the height and do different things like that. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about text styles. All right, so in your template file, this would be a good thing to update in your template file. So if you open your template file, you would have layers in there, and after today, you could potentially have text styles in there. Okay, that'd be a good thing to add. I'm going to use this little flyout menu, open up the text style manager here. All right, and I'm going to create a new style. New, and we'll call this city blueprint. Okay. All right. Now, this is where, so your book, right? Usually the instructions are very clear in your book on how to do this. And if you look in your book for this assignment, you're going to kind of find the old methodology on how to create text, right? Which still you can follow them to a certain extent, right? But we will be using annotative text. So this will still apply, and you can use it if you want to do kind of manual type text, but we're going to use annotative, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We have our city blueprint. I'm just going to click on it. I'm going to choose the font, city blueprint. The font style will be regular instead of italicized or bold or something like that, okay? We are going to click on annotative here. Click. Great. And we are going to enter a height of the size that we want our text to print. Okay, so that means on our printed page, if we want our text to be 1/4 of an inch tall, we're going to type 1/4 of an inch, enter. All right. Now there are some other features like upside down, right, backwards. Okay, we have a width factor. Maybe we make this 0.90 just for fun. You could make it italicized, which is an oblique angle. I'm not going to do that with this one. But now that I'm done, I'm going to hit apply, and I'm going to close. All right. Okay. Let me delete all these things out of here. I'm going to delete these. I'm going to delete all of this text. And let's see, delete those. There we go. Okay, so I have these 3 objects, and if I go to paper space, each of these objects is in a different viewport. All right, now I'm going to put a little piece of text, single line text, under these, and let's see. This one will make 1 inch is equal to 1 inch. Come on. It's equal to 1 foot 0 inches. Enter, enter. And then I'm going to copy that text. CO. Oh, yep, you can copy text, right? This one we'll do at what size? 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch is equal to a foot. CO, copy. And this one is going to be, I'm going to make this at an 1/8 inch actually. Well, we'll do 16th. Let's do 16th. Okay, so it's not fully in view, right? But that's how I want it. Okay, so this is going to be 1/16. Okay. All right, so we have we've got 1 to 1, 1/2 inch is equal to a foot, and a 16th. Hopefully I can remember that. And now it's time for us to add our text, right, that's going to annotate or describe these objects, okay? What's really great about annotative is I am going to add my text, and I don't have to worry about scaling it up to the size that it needs to be in order for it to represent properly in paper space, okay? I do, however, have to set my annotation scale before I create it. So down here in our little object snap taskbar, I'm going to click on customization here, and we are going to change, we're going to find our annotation scale. I'm going to click on that, and that pops up, okay? That's this right here, all right? Now, before we create our text, okay, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click on my annotation scale. This one right here is going to be 1 inch is equal to a foot. I know that scale, okay? So I'm going to change my annotation scale to 1 inch is equal to a foot. Okay, so this text is easier in that you don't have to figure out how big to make your text for it to scale back down, but it's harder in the fact that you have to remember to change your annotation scale to then place your text for it to then represent correctly in paper space. Okay, so I'm going to now change my font to City Blueprint, which is annotative. I know it's annotative because it has that little symbol next to it. All right. And I'm going to come up here to single line text. I'm going to click. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to type title. Enter, enter. Oop. Okay. Great. Oh, tilt.
I'll check.
I know, right? See? It happens. Okay, so it's obviously kind of big text, right? When I hover over the text, you see that little annotative object shows up. Does anybody know what that symbol is? Who can tell me what that symbol looks like? Oh.
Looks like a Mitsubishi sign.
A Mitsubishi sign? Kind of. There. Okay, there you go. Something architectural. I'll let you guys figure it out. Whoever figures out what that looks like can get some extra credit. Because you'll kind of laugh when you figure out what it is. Okay, so there's my text for that one. Let's create some text for this one. All right, and I'm going to come back here, and oh, I think hold on a second. I might need, actually, I'm getting a little worried that I might need to start a new file, actually, because I don't know what annotation scales are in this one. Text. Oh, text is already in use. Oh, good. Okay. Let's turn that on. We'll make this magenta. Okay. All right. Okay. There we go. Sorry, guys. Hold on 1 second. I might have some other things happening. Nope. Looks good. You know what? I might need to start a new drawing. Hold on. Just 1 second. I'm going to delink here. This was a file that Jeff created, and I just want to make sure that he hasn't... I'm going to hurry and generate the same things in another file. Okay. All right. Good. Okay. We might have a few little learning curves like this with our annotative stuff. Ah, he's turned a few things off. Okay. Well, this will be a good review because I'll do this all over again so you guys can see. All right. Sorry, I'm just recreating our viewports here. Let's make 1 more minute. Okay. Let me show you one. Okay, I'm going to link back up here. All right, I'll show you the problem I was having. So this first assignment file, this was created by Jeff, and he didn't teach annotative, so I'm not sure what settings he has changed in here. But the problem I was seeing here is that another really great thing about annotative text that you're going to find is that it is filtered out by scale. Okay, and so what that means is that I have this little object here, okay, and I put this text down here, which the text wasn't looking the right size either when I did it. But this text is tied to a certain scale, and it's the scale, the annotation scale that we set down here, right, when we create it. So what was happening in that file that I was a little worried about was that when I flipped over to Paperspace, it wasn't showing beneath here, right? And my initial thought was, well, maybe it's frozen in the viewport, maybe, you know, the layer's turned off, maybe something weird is happening. But I'm tending to think that he has something else set that I'm not going to investigate right now, right? So I created a new file. It has the 3 same objects, and I've got the 3 same viewports created, okay? But it's a fresh copy, and there's nothing that has been set that I don't know about and have to investigate. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to create my text here fresh, okay? So I've created my city blueprint here again, all right? And let's just look at it, right? It's annotative. Paperspace size is going to be 1/4 inch, okay? Looks pretty good. I'm going to type text, enter, J for justify, enter, and let's do middle center, right? Click and enter, And we'll do something like, this is a tiny object, right? Enter, enter. Okay. That looks a little bit better, the size I wanted it to be. Okay. Now what's great about this is that I come over here to my paper space, and there it is, right? And it's the right size. Okay. Let's come over back here to model space, and let's create some text for this object. All right. This object is scaled at, and if I remember right, 1/2 inch. Okay. So before I create it, I'm going to change my annotation scale to 1/4, or was it 1/2 inch? Now I've forgotten. 1/2 inch, right? Okay. And I'm going to type text, enter, justify, J, enter, MC, middle center, enter. I'm going to click down here, enter, and I'm going to type tree, enter, enter. All right. Now, when I come back over here to my layout, right, these two objects, these two pieces of text, even though they're at different scales, they look the same, which is the point of this, right? We want our text to look the right size. Now, let's just, I'm going to do something crazy, right? I'm going to delete that. Let's just pull our, well, I want to show you both of these viewports at the same time, all right? Or both of these objects in the same viewport. So I'm going to create a big viewport over here. We're going to bring our tree and our little object into the same viewport. And do you see how through the viewport that's bigger and that is smaller, right? Let me grab this viewport and change it to, that is the annotative text working. It is saying you have this viewport and you have these two different scales of text happening, and AutoCAD is compensating, making this one bigger and this one smaller to be appropriate in that viewport, okay? Now look what happens when I take this viewport and I change it to 1/2 inch is equal to a foot scale. Oh, it didn't work. What is going on? Sorry guys, there will be a little bit of my settings here. Hold on. I'm gonna have to get this all, there we go, annotation visibility, there we go. All right, I'm gonna have to troubleshoot that. Generally, I don't know what setting I have turned off here. Generally what's going to happen though is per scale, and this is 1/2 inch, it's going, what annotative also does is it filters out objects that are not the same scale. It's obviously not working right now, so I'm gonna have to troubleshoot it. But it filters out, so for example, this is a 1/2 inch text and this is 1:1, right? And so in a 1/2 inch viewport, ideally, it should filter out the style that is not appropriate, and it's not doing that for whatever reason. Oh. Well, I'll troubleshoot it and I'll let you know what it is. Anyway. But you guys get the kind of the idea behind it, that instead of us having to compensate and having different text sizes, we're going to just use annotative and AutoCAD will compensate for us essentially. Okay. So let's do one more over here. Okay, so we have this piece of text over here, and it is going to be at a 1/16. Okay, so text, oh, I forgot to see, and even I forgot to change my annotation scale to a 1/16. Okay, in a brand new drawing there is a toggle, and I wish mine would show up. Again, I'm not sure all the settings, but usually when you change your annotation scale, did any of you get a thing that said, or you tried to create text, have you changed your annotation scale? Okay, so generally if this is the first time you've done it, there's a little dialog box that will pop up and it will say, you are using an annotative object. Would you like to change the annotation scale of your screen? So that it reminds you to change it. So hopefully that will, maybe it's because we're on these computers and maybe people have dismissed it, right, in the lab before. But on your home computer, when you do it for the first time, I'm hoping that will pop up. I find it helpful. Some people don't like it, but then it reminds me to change my annotation scale anytime I create something, right? Let's see, I'm going to type text, justify, and we will do top center. We'll do click, enter, site plan, enter, enter. Okay. There we go. And I come over here to my layout, and even though this is scaled at a 1/16 of an inch, right, which means 192 zoom factor, right, and this one is scaled at a 1/2 inch, which is a 24 scale factor, and this is a 1:1, all of these pieces of text look identical. Okay. All right. Now we can create as many text styles as we need, right? So this is just really the city blueprint style, right? We like it. It looks pretty good. It's fairly easy to use. But let me just say this about text styles. They are not an instance-based object, meaning on your assignment, and let's just look at your assignment real quick. The one that you have is in my book it's page 2-25 and 2-24. So your assignment will be to create a bunch of different text styles, right, according to what these books define, what the assignment defines, and to create this text, you know, in that AutoCAD file that I've given you, right? So essentially like text justification, okay? This one right here, that's page 2-25, you will type in and create the text styles for all of the text in here, and you'll generate it, okay? And if you look at some of these and you say, okay, so I see that, you know, I've got that box at the top that has text in it, so I'll probably use multi-line text there, right? And the style and font are going to be Arial 1/8 inch or 3/32, right? So that means that I'm going to have an Arial text style that is annotative and that it's set to 1/8 inch height. I'm also going to have an Arial text style that is Arial and it's 3/32 high, right? Because those are two different heights, right? So even though they're Arial, they're two different heights, so I have two different text styles, okay? I jump down to, you know, I can use the align type text to create the align on the left-hand side of the page. You know, bottom left, bottom center, bottom right for that first line of text. Top left, middle, you know, you guys get the idea for how to create those with justification. But we get down to where it says 0.6 width factor, 0.7 width factor, 0.8 width factor, right? Those are all going to be different text styles, right? And the reason they're going to be different text styles is because, you know, when I look in here, if I have this standard text style created and I change it to be upside down, right? Every instance of text that uses that standard style will change when I change, you know, this effect on it, okay? So if I type in all of that text with, you know, with a 0.6 width factor, and then I make it upside down to create the upside down text, all of that will flip upside down, right? So this is an exercise in you generating a bunch of different text styles, probably 10 of them, right? But just know that. I think the #1 problem students have with this assignment is generally it's pretty easy, right? You know how to create the text, you know how to manipulate multi-line text and single line text, but it's a little tricky when you think, oh, you know, oblique 10 degrees. Okay, well, I'm just going to take the Arial style that I have, and I'm going to change the oblique angle to 10 degrees. And then every piece of text in your entire drawing obliques 10 degrees. And you're thinking, what's happening, right? These changes are type changes, meaning you change the type, it changes every instance of that type in your drawing, all right? Okay, so for example, if I were to start this assignment, I would come up here, I would click on my text style here. I'm nervous again about this one. I might. Has anybody copied this off CAD Common yet? Yeah? It'll probably be, you know what, it'll probably be okay. If there are huge problems, let me know. If there's some settings that are kind of weird, because this is one that Jeff generated as well, but for the old assignment. But I'm gonna assume it's gonna be okay. We'll say that. So I'm gonna click on my flyout menu here. Okay, I'm gonna click on New, And we'll say this is going to be Arial, and we'll say 1/8 inch, right? Because we have Arial 1/8 inch. For example, the M text in this box is Arial 1/8 inch. Okay. Oh, we cannot use 1/8. Okay. So I've got Arial font. We're going to make it annotative, and I'm going to make this 1/8 of an inch tall. Apply. Okay. I'm going to set current. I'm going to close this. Now, we're going to have to think about, this is one, again, this is the trick to annotative, right? We don't have to scale the text up and down, but we do have to think about how we're going to print this before we actually do the assignment. This is an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper, and if I measure this, it is an 8.5 by 11, right? Which means that if I print this, it's going to be 1-to-1 scale, right? Does that make sense? So for every inch, it's an inch, because an 8.5 by 11 will fit on an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper, right? Or PDF in your case. Okay, so this is going to be a 1-to-1 scale, so I'm going to leave my annotation scale at 1-to-1, okay? And then I'm going to do MT, or MTEXT, MText. Okay, I've got Arial 1/8 selected, and I am going to grab that, and I'm going to start typing. Copy it exactly, so it's capitalized, right? Copy the text _ justification, right? And I won't do the whole thing. I'll hit close text editor, and there's my first piece of text. Okay. So you will come in here, you'll create your styles, you will make sure your annotation scale is set. In this case, it's not going to be a huge issue because this is all going to be the same scale, right? 1-to-1. In this text style, this one is also going to be 1-to-1. So you're not going to have to change the annotation scale a whole lot to make it work, right? But I do want to just really emphasize that when we get to doing things like floor plans and different things, you will have to change the annotation scale. And if something is not working, that's the reason why, okay? All right, let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. Are you guys all going to come to the social today and get free lunch? Our officers are going to get pizza, so come sign up for the architecture club. It'll be fun, I promise. Let's see, today's the 28th.
Since we started doing this, I find myself hitting the space bar to enter in other programs, things like that. I'll hit the space bar and go, oh crap.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. Okay, I think we've gotten through everything. The other thing and not a lot of people use the escape key for things, right?
I noticed they hit that
right?
too.
But the escape key is key in AutoCAD. So one time on my laptop it went out, and everybody was like, oh, it's not a big deal. We don't use escape. And my husband and I were both like, oh, the world is ending. We can't get out of commands. It's kind of funny. All right, so we've talked about annotative text and paper space text styles. We know how to, so on the, our syllabus or semester schedule, it talks about text editing and DD edit, okay? DD edit is kind of an old term for text editing, and text editing is essentially what we are doing when we go, not to that file, to this file, when you come in here and you click, and you edit your text, right? 1. And I hit enter, right? So DD edit or text edit, kind of an older term for just double clicking on your text to edit it and make it a different string of text. So if you see that in anywhere, then you'll know that. But I think other than that, that was all I had for today, actually. On Tuesday when we meet, we're going to go back over this one more time. I want you to at least try to use annotative text. And on Tuesday what we'll do is, instead of just using it in kind of a, we're just illustrating it kind of in a straight text method, right? So you're creating text styles and you're applying it on a piece of paper that's 1-to-1. What I like to do on Tuesday when we meet again is to apply this to a real floor plan, right? So I'll have a floor plan and we'll go through adding it to rooms and using annotation scale to actually, function in a floor plan, okay? But I think that is actually all for today. we cruise right through that unless there are any questions.
There will be
When you start working on it. One final thing, text goes on a layer called A-anno you know, text or dimension or whatever. So it's an A-anno layer if you want to add new layers.
So with our site plans that have text on them, do you want us to try and put that in before we submit tonight?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So on your, yes, do that. So, and you'll have to think about the scale of the drawing you're plotting at.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's good. All right, guys. Okay, stop our video here.